The story of Melissa and Joe remained a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who heard it. The morning light filtered through the windows of the city hall as Melissa Burke stood before the cameras, embodying the perfect balance of a dedicated public servant and a woman of grace. By day, she served her community with a sharp mind and a steady heart, and by night, she maintained an elegance that few could match. She often joked to herself that she had to turn on the heat during the working hours, or else nothing would ever get accomplished in the bureaucratic halls of local government. As the news broadcast began, the television screen displayed the latest updates from the council meeting. The headline announced that from this moment forward, the elementary school class sizes would be capped at 22 students. It was a victory for education, a goal Melissa had fought hard to achieve. However, not everyone in the city shared her enthusiasm. A man representing the local business owners stood up, his face flushed with anger. He shouted that the new policy was garbage, quite literally, because the reduction in trash service to pay for the smaller classes had caused refuse to pile up in front of his restaurant. He complained that pickups had been cut to only once a week. Melissa remained the mature and rational adult in the face of his outburst, even as he brandished trash bags toward her. When she was finally away from the public eye, she could not help but whisper a small victory to herself, acknowledging that she had handled the situation with dignity. She firmly believed that one should not be that person who brings their grievances into a public arena acting like a crazy person. She valued the behavior of a gentleman and expected the same from others. Yet, her personal life was far more complicated than any city council debate. The shadow of her brother-in-law loomed large over her reputation. He had stolen money from many people, including those who now confronted Melissa, demanding to know where the funds had gone. She often had to explain that while her sister was involved, she herself was not responsible for his crimes. She would ask the room if anyone else had a relative they were not exactly proud of, finding a strange comfort in the fact that she was not alone in her family troubles. Her father had been an esteemed senator, and she felt the weight of his legacy on her shoulders. She wanted to smell like authority, not like the scandals that followed her relatives. In the quiet moments at home, the reality of her new life set in. She was now the guardian of her niece, Lennox, and her nephew, Ryder. The transition was not easy. Angry citizens had started leaving bags of trash on her front porch as a form of political protest. Lennox and Ryder found the house smelling of garbage and the atmosphere heavy with tension. Lennox, a 15-year-old with a sharp tongue and a rebellious spirit, found it hard to adjust. She treated her move into Melissa's house as a temporary arrangement, refusing to unpack her suitcases or accept the furniture Melissa bought for her room. Melissa remembered her own youth, though the memories were a bit blurry, and she knew that being 15 was a difficult age. One evening, as Melissa prepared for a rare date, she felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. It had been a long time since she had focused on her own happiness. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that spoke of intelligence and a bright political future while nodding to her past as a bit of a rebellious spirit. Just as she was about to leave, a phone call from the school principal, Miss Lent, shattered her plans. Lennox had been suspended. The girl had handed out flyers containing an original poem that used a creative and unflattering rhyme for the principal's name. The story was even being picked up by the local news on Channel 5. Melissa felt the weight of her responsibilities as a legal guardian pressing down on her. She realized she could not do everything alone. Her friend Rhonda suggested hiring a professional organizer or a nanny to provide structure and discipline for the children. As Melissa tried to confront Lennox about the suspension, she realized how much their relationship had changed. They used to share everything, but now there was a wall between them. Lennox viewed the principal as a fascist and felt that life was inherently unfair. Melissa's attempt to discipline her niece was interrupted by the arrival of a man named Joseph Longo. Joe was a former commodities trader who had lost everything because of Melissa's brother-in-law. He had come to the house in a fit of desperation, demanding his money back and shouting about Bolivia, where he suspected the fugitive relative was hiding. Despite the chaotic introduction, Joe had a proposal. He was a man of high intelligence who had once managed millions of dollars. Now he was homeless and about to lose his car. He offered to help Melissa with the city budget, claiming he could double the rate of return and solve the trash crisis. While Melissa found him a bit intense, she could not ignore his competence. More importantly, she needed someone to help with the children. Joe claimed he had experience running a youth center and was capable of cooking and helping with homework. Though Melissa did not particularly like him at first, a sudden transportation crisis forced her hand. She allowed Joe to take Ryder to school in his Porsche, which he only had for 10 more days before it was repossessed. Joe's presence in the house brought an immediate change. He was blunt, organized, and unafraid to challenge the children. He found Melissa's delicate laundry and insisted that the household stop living like pigs. He pushed Ryder to finish a history paper that the boy had neglected, refusing to let him leave his room until the work was done. When Lennox skipped her scheduled meeting with the principal, Joe was the one who went looking for her. He found her in her hiding spot, a place where she went for her adolescent brooding. Instead of judging her, Joe spoke to her as an equal. He described himself as an outlaw, cast out by the power brokers, much like a version of Batman who had been demoted to a nanny. He listened to her frustrations about the music teacher being fired and the unfairness of the school administration. He gently pointed out that while life was indeed unfair, it was also unfair for her to take her anger out on her aunt, the only person who had not abandoned her. He challenged her to think about whether Melissa deserved to face the principal alone to answer for Lennox's mistakes. His words reached the girl. Lennox showed up at the principal's office just in time to apologize. She admitted her mistake and even said a few kind things about her aunt, which moved Melissa deeply. Melissa later discovered that Joe had bribed Lennox with $50 to attend the meeting. While she was horrified by his methods, she could not deny the results. Joe admitted that there was no youth center in his past and that he was willing to lie or bribe to get things done, but he also showed a genuine care for the family's well-being. Melissa decided to give Joe a chance. She hired him as the nanny, realizing that his unconventional confidence was exactly what her household needed. The dynamic began to shift from one of chaos to one of unexpected harmony. Joe stayed up late to ensure the children finished their homework, even as Melissa returned from her own late nights. He managed the complexities of biology, math, and even the children's television habits. As the days passed, the house felt less like a collection of individuals and more like a family. They dealt with giant protesters and political scandals together. Melissa learned that she did not have to be perfect or do everything by herself. In Joe, she found a partner who was as flawed as he was capable, a man who had lost his fortune but found a new purpose in the most unlikely of places. The journey was only beginning, but for the first time in a long while, the future looked bright, filled with the promise of laughter, growth, and the enduring strength of human connection. They were a family built not just on blood, but on the shared experience of overcoming challenges and finding light in the darkest of times. The trash bags on the porch were eventually cleared away, and the smell of authority was replaced by the scent of home-cooked meals and the sound of children's laughter. Melissa Burke, the public servant, and Joe Longo, the fallen traitor, stood together as the guardians of a new beginning. It was a story of redemption, a reminder that everyone deserves a second chance, and that sometimes the most important lessons are learned not in a classroom or a city hall, but in the simple acts of caring for one another. The class size remained at 22, the garbage was picked up, and the hearts of two teenagers began to heal under the watchful eye of a man who was, in his own unique way, very much in charge. The morning light filtered through the windows of the Burke household, casting a soft glow on the remnants of a life that had recently been turned upside down. Melissa Burke, known to the public as a dedicated member of the city council, stood before her mirror, performing the daily ritual of transforming from a harried ant into a pillar of the community. She was a woman who navigated the complexities of local government with grace, yet her most challenging constituents lived right under her own roof. Melissa adjusted her blazer, her thoughts drifting to the responsibilities that awaited her. By day, she was a public servant, a woman dedicated to the betterment of her city. By night, or rather in